Hey everyone, it's Niharo here, and today I'm bringing you the Wrecking Ball, the Ogre Mage, or perhaps even El Luchador. This build is designed to first and foremost to just be fun. I chose the Ogre because, and the idea of an Ogre Mage, because we had a Wild Mage in our group, and gradually over time, through poor rolls with their Wild Mage, a custom table we had made, they turned themselves into an Ogre, and I was like, oh man, when I saw the Ogre kin coming out and the new Bestiary, I was like, I gotta do something with that. That'll be really fun. And then I started looking into it and I was like, oh, this can actually be really strong. And then I looked into it some more and I was like, oh wait, no, this could be like really powerful, like really powerful. On the low side, you can easily be doing 5d6 around with this build with brawling. And then if you want to go on the extreme side, if you get a good crit, you can do up to like 96 damage with one hit with this build. I know that's kind of crazy. I know it's a little bit broken, but I think it's balanced overall, although it is still very strong. So let's just go ahead and start off. Obviously, we're going to play an Ogre. You picked that up from the thumbnail and everything else. Ogres have as their base ability the body slam feature. What this allows you to do is to move. If you would like, you could do it as part of a dash action. So you could double move and then attack, and you hit an opponent. Instead of doing 1d6, you do 2d6 of unarmed damage, which is something we're going to lean into very much with this build. If you do hit and the target is medium or smaller, you automatically knock them prone. For those who don't know or maybe don't remember, if a target is prone, anybody who is not prone gets a boon on their attack roll to that target and also does an extra d6 of damage. So that can be really helpful for doing a combo with your group, which is why I really like this build. And I was like, oh, I might need to check that out. So you can bowl somebody over potentially for your group member, and then they could do that, get a boon and do an extra d6 of damage on that target, not to mention potentially wasting their move as they get up the next round. Now, since we are a mage, we don't get a second heroic ability. Instead, we get a school of magic, and we're going to choose Mentalist. And the reason we want to choose Mentalist is a couple of reasons, but mainly two particular spells. Stone Skin, which can give us up to DR6. The base is DR4, so that's going to be huge if we're in melee using brawling abilities, which we're going to be doing on this build. And then the other one is Power Fist. Power Fist increases your damage done with unarmed attacks by a d6 per level. So it costs 2 willpower points per level, and up to 3 is the max. You can do an extra 3d6 worth of damage with their unarmed attack by maxing out Power Fist. Now, that would cost 6 willpower points. Stone Skin costs anywhere from 2 to 6. But with those two things combined, you can really be a brawler. You get the idea of the Wrecking Ball, and then you charge in with your body slam ability, and you can just do crazy amounts of damage, especially if you crit. And you actually have a situation with the whole like luchador thing, where I was kind of going with that, is that if you do charge in, you knock a target prone, you've got your Power Fist on, and you're doing just a ton of damage. Now they're prone. If you get to go before them in the next round, you're going to be able to do an extra d6 of damage and get a boon on that attack roll. So I'm thinking like, you're coming from the ropes, people's elbow. That's the idea, right? Is that you can knock targets over and then potentially do like some sort of slam or other kind of attack. You can also do grappling attacks as well. So those are the two main spells that we're going to go with there. As our third spell, we could go with something like Farsight, which is from the Mentalist skill line, allows you to see an area remotely. You could also go something like Dispel Magic could be very useful. A Protector could also be very useful, which Dispel Magic is fairly self-explanatory. Protector allows you to reduce the damage done by a particular spell or magical ability. And then you have a few cantrips. I personally went with Sense Magic, Slow Fall, which is also a Mentalist ability. And then, it's your choice. Maybe something like Light or even Lock and Unlock could be very useful depending on where you want to go. But again, that's just a flex spot, so you can have some utility for your party as well, which I think is what most people are definitely going to expect in Dragonbane from a mage. You're not just only a brawler. Now, for other potential heroic abilities that could be useful for you either now or in the future, a couple of things here. So Battle Cry, if you want to be more utility, whenever you shout your Battle Cry, all of your party members who can hear you within shouting distance can remove a status effect from their character sheet. And that's actually like fairly cheap for the huge effect that it gives on Battle Cry. You could do something like Intuition or Insight. Intuition gives you a little bit, it's fairly self-explanatory. The GM can give give you a little bit of hint about, which way to go or something else, give you a little tap in the right direction. Insight will give you spend 2 willpower points, and then you can roll awareness to determine if a target is lying. That could have a lot of effects in role playing as well. You could go with something like Master Carpenter. I am going to recommend that you get a shield on this build whenever you can. So that's another thing. And being able to be a carpenter, you can create your own shield and also help out the party that way. And then choosing another magic talent could also be another great way to do it. Go with more utility, pick a different school of magic, that kind of stuff. If you want to go straight combat, if you're just trying to be that wrecking ball, then you could go with something like defensive, which you spend 3 willpower points, and that will give you a free defense that does not take your action for that turn. Free parry, I should say, which again will lend into having a shield, because your shield is, you technically parry with a shield. Sometimes I know people are used to calling it block, but in Dragonbane it's considered a parry. You could also go with something like focus, which will give you a few extra willpower points. We'll talk more about that kind of stuff later. That's just an always good skill to have, and we're going to be using a lot of willpower points on this build. Since we have spells, we have so many uses for willpower points. Having like another, heroic ability that costs a lot of willpower points is not that useful for us, or not as useful as it might be on a different kind of character. And then something like Iron Grip could be really good. Iron Grip, what that does is it only costs 1 willpower point, so it's fairly cheap, and it gives you a boon on a grapple roll. So whenever you grab a target, you can grapple them. They can't move and do anything besides trying to break free. So this can be very helpful for like CCing an opponent. So they're trying to break free. You can spend 1 willpower point to continue to hold them, and then on your turn, if you'd like, you can squeeze. And so you get a boon on that roll, and you can do damage just like a normal unarmed attack. And I would argue that some of these things should still stack. You should be able to use your Iron Grip with your Iron Fist ability to do considerable amount of damage if you've already buffed yourself and everything. Your GM might rule that, hey, Iron Fist is meant to be a fist, but I really think it's just meant to increase your overall damage with your unarmed attacks. Subject to GM approval, I suppose, but I think that can be a great way to both lock down a target and also continue to do quite a bit of damage to them. So that's kind of the combat versus utility options there. For gear, I like gear. It doesn't really matter. I like gear option 3 though, because it gives us a warm pelt to keep us warm at night. And we're a big ogre, but we're soft on the inside, and we'd like to be warm and cozy in the evening, as well as giving us an amulet for our magical focus. So that's why I went with gear option 3. And then of course, get a shield as soon as you can. Shield, especially if you choose something like defensive, it's going to help you be able to defend more often and not take as much damage, because we are not going to be able to wear armor, even though we have our stone skin and other abilities to increase our survivability. We're not going to be stacking a whole lot in constitution, and Dragonbane is a harsh game. It's a harsh system. It can be, at least. And so having a shield, definitely grab that as soon as you can. I asked around like, hey, would you guys allow a wooden shield? And overwhelmingly the answer I got from the unofficial Dragonbane Discord, which I'll probably link down below. Those guys are great. They've been really helpful for me. Everybody seemed to agree that like a shield is totally fine. For age, I would recommend, if you can increase so if you're young, you increase your dexterity and constitution by 1. If you can move yourself into a different bracket with dexterity to increase your skills and what have you, then I would go with young. Otherwise, I think the extra options for skills that you do know, I would prefer to go with an adult in that case. Now for attributes, will, so we're going to be using our will for all kinds of stuff. We're going to be using it for all these different spells, all kinds of stuff. So I think our will should be our highest attribute, absolutely, if we can. After that, I would want at least a 13 to 16 strength. If you have several high abilities like I have here, I would max out strength, because I think it's fun and thematic to be a big ogre and you want to be strong, but you're also a mage. So I went with a 17 on my strength since I had one. It really is up to you though, but generally speaking, I think the extra D4 damage is pretty huge on this build, and so I would typically try to have at least a 13 strength if you can. It'll also help you with having a decent brawling skill, which you definitely want. Of course, you can improve that later, but starting with a decent skill will be important. After that, intelligence and constitution. So, the deal here is that we want we want to focus on our intelligence, and then after, you know, we've kind of min-maxed that as much as we can, we want the highest constitution we can. So if you have an intelligence between a 13 and 15, that's totally good, right? 16 will increase our skills, so all of our skills will start two levels higher for our spell casting and what have you. So that's why if you can get that 16 plus in intelligence, I would probably go for it. If you're in the 13 to 15 range, and you have another ability that's in the 13 to 15 range, I would put the highest one in constitution if you can. Obviously, as you're rolling up your character, depending on how you guys do it, you might not be able to do that, but just keep it in mind. It's a little bit confusing there, but at least the 13 to 15, if you can get that 16, definitely do it. Just realize that the idea here is that, you know, after you've made your character, you can't really improve your intelligence, but you can improve your skills, which are based on your intelligence. So that's easy to do. Once your constitution is set, you can't really change it. And so early game, yes, having a higher intelligence is more important, but for the long play, having a higher constitution is more important because you'll level up those skills eventually. So kind of keep that in mind if you're playing a short one-off. Probably go with intelligence. If you're going to be playing this long form, you could be a dumb ogre or not that smart ogre. We probably don't want to be dumb. That can cast spells and just get better with it as time goes by. After that, we have our skills. Our mentalist gives us pretty much everything we need here. So I went with acrobatics, awareness, beast lore, evade, healing, languages, myths and legends, spot hidden, brawling, and mentalist. I'll talk about each one of these. Acrobatics, it's going to let us climb better, jump, what have you. There might be rough, difficult terrain. Acrobatics is going to come in helpful there. Awareness lets you spot things. It's intelligence based. We want our intelligence high anyway, so that's gonna work out really well for us, being aware of stuff. Beast lore. Beast lore, you could definitely drop this, but I think it's fun because, like, if I'm an ogre, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, my cousin married a harpy, you know? And I think there's some fun RP with that, of why you know the information you know, because you're one of the beasts, or you could be, or you're familiar with them, or whatever. You're not just a normal human or humanoid that is in normal refined society. So I think beast lore could be really fun. Evade is how we dodge attacks. I really think that we want that shield so that we can parry them using our brawling ability. Brawling is based on strength, and our shield is based on any of our melee abilities. Brawling is one of them. So I think usually we're going to be hopefully parrying, but evade can still be useful. We're big. We might get stuck in certain situations. I would just definitely grab evade, even if it's not the highest skill you have. You probably at least want to be decent at it, unless it's fun to be really bad at it. And then in which case, who needs it? After that is healing. Healing, I feel like mages often are the healer in the group, and so it's intelligence-based, makes sense for us to grab. Languages, again, intelligence-based, makes sense for us to grab. Myths and legends, again, kind of same deal. Spot hidden. We might have a rogue or someone else in the group who can do spot hidden, but if we don't, or you're just interested in having it, since it is intelligence-based, spot hidden could be really good for you, or for your particular build. Brawling, we definitely want this. Brawling is going to be our, what we use to bowl over targets, with our slam attacks, and also to block with our shields. We want brawling very high. And then mentalist. Mentalist is how we cast spells. So obviously we want that very high. If you decide to go with young, it really depends on you. Languages, spot hidden, myths and legends, beast lore, those evade, those could all be things you could drop, and it really just depends on you and your particular flavor. First thing I would tend to drop is whatever somebody else in the party had. Anyways, that's it for today. I appreciate you guys watching. Hope this was helpful. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you're like, this is wrong, you shouldn't be doing this, or if you have ideas about other things you'd like to see with Dragonbane, please let me know. I got plenty of ideas for videos, but I want to make sure that I'm making videos that you guys want to see. Anyways, that's it for today. Appreciate you guys watching. We'll catch you next time.